He could have taken the money. No one would have known. But one veteran trucker chose integrity over survival. And just 7 days later, the decision that nearly broke him changed everything. Would you make the same choice? The rain had been coming down for hours, slicing through the night like cold knives. Austin Wilson leaned against the frame of his rig, the glow of the diner's neon sign reflecting off the wet asphalt. The smell of diesel, rain, and burnt coffee lingered in the air. He lit a cigarette with trembling fingers, more from exhaustion than need. His back ached. His knees felt like they were held together with rubber bands and prayers. 30 years on the road, and nothing to show for it, except calloused hands, a crumpled photo of his daughter in his wallet, and a list of overdue bills he'd memorized like scripture. That's when he saw him. Douglas Myers, wearing a trench coat that looked too clean for a place like this, stepping out from a white Mercedes. "Evening, Austin," he said smoothly, his voice cutting through the rain like a polished blade. Austin took a slow drag from his cigarette and gave him a cautious nod. "Didn't expect to see a regional manager out here in the mud." Douglas gave a small chuckle. "Didn't expect you'd be working this route tonight. Guess life's full of surprises." Austin didn't answer. He'd seen men like Douglas before. Clean hands, expensive watches, and smiles that never reached their eyes. Douglas stepped closer. "You ever think about how underpaid you are? You move millions in freight every year. They hand you crumbs. Doesn't sit right with me." Austin flicked ash off the end of his cigarette. "That's the job. No one forced me to take it." Douglas nodded slowly. "Still, with everything you've got going on, your daughter's treatment, those insurance headaches, I figured maybe you'd be open to something smarter." Austin's eyes narrowed. "Say what you're here to say." Douglas reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope. "We're rerouting a few shipments. Slight changes to the manifest. You do nothing but drive like always. I'll make sure you're thanked properly. This," he raised the envelope, "is just for listening." Austin stared at it for a long beat. The rain drummed louder. "How many drivers are you offering this to?" Austin asked finally, voice low. Douglas smiled. "Just the smart ones, the ones who know the difference between loyalty and survival." Austin's jaw tensed. His daughter Sophie was back home in her bed, pale and quiet, her medications running low again. Insurance had denied the last appeal. The hospital bills were growing teeth. That envelope could keep the lights on, could buy medicine, could buy time. But Austin's eyes drifted to Douglas's hand. His nails were manicured. His watch glinted with arrogance. There was no empathy there, only calculation. This man wasn't offering help. He was buying silence. Austin took one last drag, dropped the cigarette, and crushed it under his boot. "No." Douglas blinked, almost amused. "No?" Austin looked him in the eye. "You said something earlier about loyalty and survival. I've survived worse than this, and I sure as hell won't sell out for a man who doesn't even have the guts to do his own dirty work." Douglas's smile vanished. The air grew still. "You'll regret that," he said quietly, almost like a promise. Austin stepped back toward his rig, opened the door and paused. "Maybe," he said without turning around, "but at least I'll still be able to look my daughter in the eyes." He climbed in, fired up the engine, and pulled away from the lot. Behind him, Douglas stood alone in the rain, envelope still in hand, watching the truck disappear into the night. What Austin didn't know was that someone inside the diner had been watching the whole thing. 3 days had passed since the night Douglas Myers made his offer. Austin hadn't told a soul. Not because he was afraid, but because of what it meant. The temptation, the fact that part of him still replayed the envelope in Douglas's hand when Sophie's coughs got too harsh at night. He pulled into the loading dock in Tulsa. The dispatcher barely looked at him as he handed over a new manifest. It was lighter than usual, less freight. Another sudden change of route. "New assignment?" Austin asked. "Exactly what it says," the man muttered. "Came from upstairs." "Douglas," Austin pressed. The dispatcher looked up, his tone sharper. "Didn't say. You taking it or not?" Austin said nothing. He took the form and headed back to his cab in silence. T home. Sophie was getting worse. She didn't complain, but Austin could see the fatigue in her eyes. "You look like a raccoon, Dad," she said weakly, grinning, pointing at the bags under his eyes. "Good means I'm scary," he muttered, kissing her forehead. She laughed, a small fleeting sound that made his chest ache. Later that night, Austin stared at the medical forms stacked on the kitchen table. Final notices, overdue balances, rejection letters. He didn't notice the black sedan parked 2 houses down at a truck stop in Amarillo. Whispers floated through the air. "You hear about Big Tony? Disappeared. Whole trailer's gone. Police picked up his brother this morning." Austin didn't engage, just listened. The atmosphere was changing. Drivers were watching each other now. That's when he saw her. Kelly Taylor, a young dispatcher at a corner table with a laptop open and a small notebook beside it. Austin approached. "You tracking ghosts or just writing a novel?" Kelly startled but composed herself quickly. "Just cleaning up some records." He gave her a look. "You don't log routes from this far out." She paused, studying him. Then she leaned in, voice low. "You turned him down, didn't you?" Austin didn't react. "I've been watching the route data," Kelly continued. "Shipments that don't make sense. Drivers getting rerouted with no formal documentation. Then the delays. Then the disappearances." "Why tell me?" Austin asked. "Because you were the first one who didn't look away when I asked questions. And because I think they're watching me now, too." She slid a small flash drive across the table. "This has backup manifests. You'll know what to look for." Austin stared at it for a long second before pocketing it. That night, on a stretch of I-40, he noticed the headlights again. Same distance, same movement. Every time he switched lanes, it did too. Back home, Sophie's friend Nora had stopped by. Sophie smiled as they chatted, but Austin watched from the hallway, and in the brief silence between their laughter, he saw her fingers tremble as she reached for a glass of water. By the end of the week, Austin was running nearly empty. Fewer loads, fewer hours. Yet the company's numbers looked untouched. Then the hammer dropped. Officers stormed another rig at a way station outside Albuquerque. A driver named Reggie was dragged out in cuffs. His trailer completely empty. Manifest showed a full load. He claimed he followed orders. Dispatch denied knowing about the reroute. No one believed him. Austin stood by his rig, jaw clenched. The noose was tightening. That night, Austin sat on the edge of his bed, the flash drive in hand, Sophie's lab results on his lap, and a growing storm behind his eyes. He knew now that this wasn't just a rogue manager pocketing extra cash. This was bigger. The knock came just after sunrise. Austin opened the door to find Kelly on his porch, drenched in sweat and panic. "It's happening," she said, breathless. "I sent it." He blinked. "Sent what?" "The tip, the files, your recording." Austin's heart stopped. "You what?" "I sent it to a contact at Freightline Journal. Told them everything." Austin stepped outside, jaw tight. "Kelly, that recording wasn't. I know you didn't say I could use it, but you kept it. You knew what it meant." He ran a hand down his face. "It's going to blow back on you. I don't care anymore. They're about to eat their own." By midday, the storm had broken. Headlines everywhere. Whistleblower exposes corruption in major logistics firm. Veteran driver refuses bribe. Sparks investigation. Austin's phone exploded. News vans parked outside. Other drivers were calling just to say, "We're with you." Douglas Myers was arrested that afternoon outside his gated house. The footage played on loop. Executives from the company began releasing statements of surprise and disappointment, denying knowledge, praising brave employees who stood for integrity. But one name kept rising in every headline. Austin Wilson, veteran truck driver, resists six-figure bribe. Father of sick teen stands tall while others fall. Austin didn't like it, felt twisted, oversimplified. But then the letters started arriving. Handwritten notes, emails from drivers, dispatchers, nurses, veterans, mothers who had lost their daughters to the same illness Sophie had. All saying the same thing. "Thank you." Sophie started smiling again. Real smiles. When a classmate's mother set up a fundraiser online, Sophie laughed through tears and said, "Dad, people care about us. Can you believe that?" Then came the convoy. Unmarked trucks parked quietly on the street. A single black SUV in the lead. Austin stepped out onto the porch as the door opened. The man who stepped out looked too young to be taken seriously. Late 30s maybe, lean, sharp suit. "Mr. Wilson?" the man asked, hand outstretched. "I'm Logan Moranis." Austin hesitated. He knew the name. CEO of Hawkline Freight Systems. Billionaire. "What's a guy like you doing out here?" Austin asked, not shaking his hand. Moranis smiled. "Making something right." They sat inside. "I read everything," Moranis said. "The report, the files, your recording. You could have taken the money. You didn't. Wouldn't have solved anything," Austin muttered. "But it saved us," Moranis said. "This scandal would have destroyed my company. Instead, we have a chance to clean it up for real." He leaned forward. "I want you to head up a new internal ethics team. Driver first. Eyes on every level of the supply chain. You won't be a figurehead. You'll have authority." Austin laughed bitterly. "I'm a trucker, not a corporate suit." "Exactly. That's why I trust you." Moranis reached into his jacket and slid a sealed folder across the table. Inside, a formal job offer, a direct line to the CEO's office, and highlighted in yellow, a commitment from the company to fully cover Sophie's treatment, past and future. "I don't buy silence," Moranis said. "If you want to say no, I'll walk out and wish you well. But if you say yes, we build something better." That night, Austin sat beside Sophie's bed as she slept. He hadn't made his decision yet, but the road ahead didn't feel hopeless. Felt open. Austin never expected that doing the right thing would ripple this far. And now everything was different. The gears of the company and Austin's life were turning with new purpose at AT corporate headquarters. Logan Moranis launched a complete ethics overhaul, and he wanted Austin right in the middle of it. Austin walked into his first ethics committee meeting in worn boots and a flannel shirt. Someone offered him a tailored jacket. He laughed. "If you want honesty, you better get used to my sleeves rolled up." It was Austin who pushed for the first reform. A direct, anonymous hotline for truckers. Within weeks, reports started to pour in. Small abuses, silent fears, things that had festered too long in the dark. Kelly was promoted, now head of operational audits. The girl who once whispered warnings was now issuing protocols with authority. Out on the road, the whispers changed. Drivers who once avoided Austin now pulled up beside him at truck stops. "I should have said no, too," one muttered. Some of them took the company's offer of redemption. Confess, cooperate, make amends. Austin never judged them. He knew how close he'd come himself. "It's easy to fall," he told one. "What matters is whether you get back up clean." And the man just nodded. Eyes full of hope. One gray morning, Austin pulled his rig off route. He drove until the prison gates rose before him. Inside, seated across a metal table, Douglas Myers looked thinner, older. His slick charm was gone. Well, Douglas said. "Didn't expect you." Austin sat down without a word. "You came to gloat." Austin shook his head. "No. Came to see if there was anything left of the man who used to believe in hard work." Douglas scoffed. "Hard work doesn't pay bills when your kids are sick." "I know," Austin said. "That's why your offer almost worked." Douglas studied him. "You won. Your name's on the news. I'm a headline no one reads past the fold." Austin leaned forward. "I didn't win. I chose, and I'll live with that choice every mile I drive." As he stood to leave, Douglas spoke one last time. "You did what I couldn't." Austin paused, then replied, "You still can. Might not look like it now, but people change if they want to." Then he walked out. No anger, no triumph, just closure. Weeks later, a soft breeze blew through the cab of Austin's truck as he rumbled down a quiet two-lane road. Next to him, Sophie, her face turned toward the sun. She was getting stronger. Her voice had energy again. "I miss this," she said. "The road, the quiet." Austin smiled. "Me too." They rode in silence for a while. Then she spoke again, softer this time. I've been thinking maybe I want to study law. Not the courtroom kind, corporate stuff. Ethics, fraud, all that. Austin glanced at her. Really? I want to know where things go wrong and maybe help fix them before they do. He nodded, swallowing a lump in his throat. You'd be good at that. She smiled. Guess I got it from my dad. Austin looked ahead, the open road stretching toward the horizon. Sunlight flickered through the trees, casting gold across the windshield. For years, he had driven alone, freight in the back, and 1,000 worries in his chest. Now he drove with purpose, with company, and with the unshakable knowledge that one choice made in the rain had changed everything, not just for him, for everyone. This story reminds us that integrity doesn't always pay immediately, but when it does, it can change lives. What would you do if you were in Austin's position? Would you take the money or the risk? Let us know in the comments.